Hello, beautiful world. Welcome back to the conversation, Postgame with Simone. And in this one, I have my beautiful friend of almost 10 years, Drea Mize, joining me to discuss a few things about transitions, not only as a walk-on to a university, but also transitioning from the university into coaching. She is a beautiful friend of mine, currently coaching at Lincoln University in Missouri, making a name for herself and building a program that fits her style, which is compassion, vulnerability, and the ability to just love the game of basketball. She's changing the world one student at a time. In the conversation, she is currently actively recruiting to help build her program there in Missouri. This is such a beautiful and important conversation because a lot of our journeys are different, but we have so many similarities. So I hope there's something that you can learn and take away from it. So without further ado, please enjoy. This is Drea Mize.
Anyway, I have already pushed record, and so we will just go with it. Again, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, so, I'm excited.
Yes. So, Miss, I have so many ways to call you, but I'm just going to call you from what I know, which is Mize.
Okay.
You will always be Mize to me. But I'm dying to know who this Coach Mize, who this Drea Mize is. If you would love to, I would personally love if you would introduce yourself and tell the people who you are.
Yeah. So, like Moan said, everybody in college called me Mize. High school, I was D, and now everybody calls me Coach Mize or Coach. Yeah. But I grew up in Indiana, played basketball in Indiana, was a walk-on to start, ended up earning a scholarship, then ended up going right into coaching right after, and I'm now a Division II coach at an HBCU in Missouri called Lincoln University, and I just took over last summer and trying to rebuild this program. And really it's all about the culture and the environment and the family atmosphere. So that's really, as you can tell, I'm sitting in my car. We're parked. Don't worry. I'm sitting in my car, and I'm trying to find future Blue Tigers because, basketball is just, it's awesome. It teaches us so much. And so I've really devoted my life to this work. And it's not work. I really don't have to work a day of my life, but to this entity and to giving back.
Holy cow. I mean, you definitely breezed your way through that introduction. And there's so much more in depth of what has come of you, what you have become. And I would love to get into some of those details because you didn't just jump into this line of work because you had nothing better to do. You fought, clawed, gave blood. I mean, you are one of the top, I would say, in what it means to have a work ethic and be so freaking passionate about the things that you do. And so I want to start from the beginning, if we can, if we can start there. I know it's not the prettiest of situations, but I came to know you in the Jack era. So we both went to Indiana University, Bloomington. Who is in this beautiful tournament that we like to call the NCAA tournament, currently playing in San Antonio. So shout out to them. But that's where we met. In the Jack era, and that wasn't the most pleasant.
That wasn't smooth.
It wasn't smooth.
It wasn't smooth, and not for me. I mean, I don't think it was for you. I mean, obviously, I think that was a big reality check for me. Like I had that was the first time I'd ever, essentially failed at something. I was brought there as a walk-on, and they were trying to move me to a point guard, and I just think that staff at the time had a lot on their plate, and they just really didn't have time to make me into the player that they wanted. So I ended up, not finishing out the season. But do you remember, I don't remember if it was you or Sasha, I get on the bus, and I think it was March, right after they announced that they had let go of the staff.
Yeah.
And y'all were like, we're playing pickup, let's go. And I was like, no, I have not played ball in 5 months. And I'm pretty sure it was Sasha was like, let's go. And I kind of got drug back. And I think I'd gotten my heart broken. So I was very worried about going back. And then I went back, and, Kurt Miller ended up getting hired. And I fell in love with everything they did and every aspect of that program that they built in Indiana. And I think that's kind of where my want to coach came from. I just saw how much of an impact you could have as a person on a person and their life outside of basketball. Like I was a walk-on. No one in that staff had to pay attention to me. They didn't have to love on me. You guys didn't have to love on me. Like I technically wasn't a part of your family when y'all drug me back to pickup. But it was those relationships that really carried me through, and I loved that. And I think, you know, I tell everybody now, you know, one of my fondest memories with the staff itself was, you know, Kurt Miller just took over at Indiana, and we're in summer workouts, and he takes the time. I don't know if he had heard that I had, you know, gone through a breakup or what, but he took the time to pull me in, and him and I talked for, I mean, it had to have been an hour. And you know, his schedule is, he was packed all the time. And I walk in scared, thinking I'm in trouble, and it turns out he just wanted to make sure I was okay as a person. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. Like I still reflect on that now. Because I just think it did so much for me. And I don't know if I've ever even told him that story. I don't know if that's ever come to light, but I just remember being like, man, I really needed that. Still to this day, do you remember you gave me that little thing about believe? And I still have it sitting on I still have it sitting at my office because you believed in, you know, what I wanted to do next. Coach Kevin, who was at Indiana as well, said, hey, you get your first head coaching job, call me, I'll be your assistant. Now I ended up teasing him a couple years ago when I got my first head coaching job and said, hey, you made a promise. And
That's right. Like, oh, where you at?
So awesome. But it's those relationships. Like I just thought the world of those relationships. Obviously, you and I, you know, we don't talk all the time, but we still talk. I still pick up the phone for Mo.
Yes, we do. And when we do, it's like we haven't, no time has passed, right? It's like we're picking back up where we left off. And so I want to dig into a little bit, because you've only mentioned it, but this love relationship we have for this sport, right? I think most of us who grow up in our particular sport, for us, it's basketball. You know, one of those sports that we love. We do it because we love it. As children, you know, our parents want to encourage us to be active. And so we fall in love with this sport. And then over time, I don't know about you, but it becomes a little bit more than just fun. It becomes like this intimate, like dedication of time, energy, space that we create for ourselves. And then to have it be either taken away or for us to like break up with it, or, you know, with some parts of it, we kind of go through this like weaving relationship, up and down relationship with the sport. For you as a young woman, right, who's loved basketball, who came to Indiana to go, not only go to school, but who felt encouraged enough to walk on to the team, to try out, right? When things weren't going as you had expected, right, with this sport that you love, what toll, what emotional, you know, what did you carry with that as a young woman?
You know, I actually don't know if I've ever thought about it. Like so senior year, obviously we got a new coaching staff, and I just didn't play a lot at all. And I had always, you know, I'd always been the energy kid at U. If we needed anything, I was there. I was dedicated. And my senior year just did not turn out the way I wanted it to. I really felt lost. I didn't have the connection with the coaches. I didn't think anybody really knew me. And so I think that was probably, if you know, and you know, I hate when people do this, but that's probably the closest I'd ever been to depression at the time. And I really resented the sport because I'd given it so much. It's kind of, you know, I always think back to the Kobe movie that he made, like, you know, I've given you my all, I just don't have anything left to give. And I think if there was ever a moment for me, just with basketball, not even playing, just basketball in general, that was kind of my moment. Like, I've given you everything, and I just wanted this last ride. And I was heartbroken. I questioned if coaching was for me. I questioned my path. And it was a really, at the end, it was a really tough couple of weeks, couple of months. And so, but then, you know, through that, I reached out to a couple mentors. I had really great teammates that year. And I actually, one of the things I did while I was not playing was I was the coach on the sidelines. Like, I was constantly encouraging. We had a bunch of freshmen that year, Tyra Buss, JJ, all of them, Mara Musterman. And I was constantly encouraging and picking them up and saying, hey, we're going to get through this. And so that just kind of stuck with me. And so we got to the end of the season. I'm like, what do I do next? And they're all like, that's a no brainer. Like,
Right.
what you're doing next.
What you've been doing this whole time.
Yeah, exactly. So I
Mhm.
actually kind of like, I hated that from a player standpoint for me personally, because that was the end of me playing. Like I wanted to play, but I wasn't playing. But that
Mhm.
was really the transition to the coach
Yeah.
in me, and knowing I could do it, and having that comfortability. And so, I'm very appreciative of that, because I was able to mold into, who I wanted to be from a coaching standpoint. So ended up going into coaching, and I think that brought life back into
Yeah.
my love and my passion for the
Mhm.
game, because you don't realize at the time, but basketball, when you're around it for so long, is so much of your life.
Yes. It's a part of who you
And
are.
yeah, it just is all encompassing.
Yeah.
And so, getting to a point where I almost lost it, and then finding it back and realizing that
Mhm.
there are women in basketball and in sports that have that happen every single year, whether it's after high
Mhm.
school, after college, after the pros.
Yeah.
And I could help be a part of that transition. I mean, for me, that was a no brainer. I always had my parents say, you never want to work a day in your life. And I've been truly blessed to coach and not work a day in my life. I love what I do. I never wake up and hate what I do. And so
Mhm.
now my real passion is, obviously, I get to coach basketball, and that's the X's and O's. And I love that. I'm so competitive.
Yeah.
But I really love that the championships for me and for my program are, in 10 years, the players that are going to call and say, hey, you taught me time management, or you helped me get this internship that showed me what my passion was. And
Mhm.
so I could go right into it. I never had to work to figure that out. It just happened. So that's really been big for me. And I think it's really helped me become a head coach at a young age, because I'm able to relate.
Yes.
Still working out the kinks. We're still growing. I'm still
Mhm.
learning. But I'm very eager, and I'm very, I'm a workaholic. So I
Yeah.
get after it, and I'm going to figure it out. And I think the girls respect that, and it makes them
Mhm.
have to be better as well.
Wherever you go, where you are currently, anybody to have a moment with you, whether it's to sit and hear you, run a play, or to just be in your presence for mentorship, anyone would be lucky to have a soul like you in their life. In
Man,
my
Mom, don't make me cry.
No,
Don't
no,
make me
no.
cry. But the crazy thing is I couldn't have gotten through my years at Indiana without you. Like, you were my mentor,
We'll
and
see.
and so we just pay it forward. Isn't that beautiful? Like, you did it for
Mhm.
me, I did it for that younger group. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And you stole the words right out of my mouth, because just as much as um, your experience, although we shared an experience, our experiences were different. We have to be, kind of honest about that, right? And however, what I was able to do, what I was able to produce for that, I don't know if you remember that. I'm sure you do. That freshman class that came in, my senior, and your junior season,
Mm-hmm.
we had our hands full. There was a lot of teaching we had to do as upperclassmen, right?
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so, I could not have had the mental capacity for them, uh, had it
They're
not
they're
been
like puppies. They're like puppies. Like, they had so much energy.
so much energy, didn't know what to do with it, bored all the time, had places to go. And, you and I had a goal, right? We wanted to finish out, we wanted to not only represent our university, but do the thing that we worked our asses off. And our bodies at this point are like, please retire. And it's like, no, we have to keep going. I have to keep going. And so I say all that to
Uh-huh.
say, man, like, your presence and the things that you possess, not as a coach, not only as a player, but as a person, your ability to listen and to be attentive. I think there were several things that I might have said to you in passing, and the next thing I know, there's something in my locker in regards to that. Whether it was a drink
Mm-hmm.
or a snack, or you were like, "Hey, Moan, you need me to come pick you up?" And it's like, we can't ask for better community, than the people who are sitting there paying attention and listening. And so,
Mm-hmm.
I only know that that's just a piece of who you are as a coach, and makes you the best man for the job. When you look back at who you were, what do you think she needed? What do you think would have been the most beneficial to her understanding that transition, right? So post game, the reason for this podcast is to talk about just that, those transitions that are often gone unsaid, that we have to kind of figure out as we do them. And I personally think that if we can shed some light to what that transition looks like, then we can better help the future of sports, of athletics.
Yeah.
Because like you came across a senior season and was not expecting to have the ending that you received. Does that
Yeah.
make sense? And so yeah. So what would you give to her? What would you say?
Um, I think I would have given her. You never want to see the future, right? We were always told like things happen for a reason,
Right.
but when they're happening, it just doesn't make sense, and it hurts.
Yeah.
And there's some people even say, "Why me? Why this? Why us?"
Mm-hmm.
And I think I would have given myself either compassion or the ability to understand that there was a bigger picture.
Yes.
I think as a senior, I knew and I understood like new coaching staff wants to use the younger kids. I mean, heck, I did the same thing this year. I think what I was lacking in that regard was the relationship status of getting to know me as a person still. And so that's something I carry on with me now as a coach, is still knowing them as people. But I do think that if I had just understood what it was going to teach me and what it was going to mold me into this coach who is able to do those things and able to see both sides, because I was never the 40-minute Big Ten All-American, but I still played, and I guarded some really good players and had some moments where like I got very lucky. And so, a lot of people go in and they only know, starting and playing a bunch or never playing at all. And I got very lucky in seeing 3 coaches in 4 years, and seeing all of the sides, all of the angles, and being able to use that to channel my next career path, which was coaching for me. And I think we all sometimes skip over those experiences or block them out or avoid them because it takes us to a place of pain. But I think the place of pain is sometimes where you find the most growth. And so that would be something that for me, I think having known that now, I would have embraced it a little bit more and not allowed it to take me to that place. But I certainly don't think I'd change it. I just think I would have welcomed it a little bit more. You obviously never want to hurt. You never want to be in pain. You never want to suffer. But I do think it's in our darkest moments that we're able to really scratch and claw to find that sunlight and really figure out who we are. So yeah, that probably would have been the one thing I would have told my old self.
Leaning into it. I mean, you couldn't have said it better. I couldn't have said it better myself. Leaning into what's uncomfortable, because the ability to reframe something, to look at something that's so horrible and awful, and to choose to see the possibilities of what could come from that, I think is the best muscle we could practice. Of course, as young women, right? That's not necessarily something we get to sit down and talk about with another group of young women who are paving the way. That's just kind of something we see in other people doing. So I like the fact that you just mentioned it, simply because the transition will be difficult and it won't be the only one. Right? I think
there'll be a ton.
Yeah, you've experienced not only that particular ending, right? You've experienced a lot of other ups and downs to where you are now, between now and then. And so absolutely, I think everybody could learn something from that, for sure.
Yeah, I think I've a lot of people would shun me for being in this position and having the relationship that I have with all my players and being so vulnerable with them, because we are in an era where really, if the kids wanted to, they could use it against me. But I also think that by being vulnerable and telling our stories, you're more relatable, and then you build this respect and this love, and then they're able to grow through that because they understand, when I go into practice and I get on them, it's not coming from a bad place. It's coming from a place of love and a place of, I know you can be better and I want to help you through this. And so, like I've told them some of my, deepest moments, anywhere from, getting married at a young age, being divorced, having 3 coaches in 4 years, moving multiple times across the country, and things that a lot of people would shy away from having conversations about. But I think when you have those conversations, you're able to to link up more. And, you know, a lot of my kids are, well, my parents went through a divorce. You know, I saw it from this standpoint. So, you know, sometimes I forget you know, this parent was hurting too, or whatever it may be. And so it really opens that avenue of having conversation. And I think the one thing we're lacking in the world is conversation and communication, and just the you know, through those conversations, we're allowed to heal and we're allowed to love.
Yeah. This is a human experience. Every human has their own particular experience, and it's shared just simply because you are you and I am who I am. And so I love that you mentioned and that you share vulnerability with your staff and with your players. I personally never really experienced that from a coaching staff. So I can only imagine, as somebody working in the mental health field, what that could have done for me as an athlete to hear the rawness of my coach in a different way, you know, because we do. I mean, you experience it. We see them on this level of pedestal that's perfection, that is going to protect me, that is, you know, watching out for me, has my best interest. And so this human ability allows us to really dissect and see, well, they are that, but they also are very human, just like me, and they have feelings just like me. So
yeah.
One of my last questions I want to ask you, if I can, as a coach, you know, basketball has changed. It always shifts, right? But this pandemic that we've all experienced has really changed how we view entertainment, but also how we view our expectations, right? I don't think you went into this year expecting to have to play in an empty gym. I'll say that. Play or coach with restrictions with masks and safety and constant COVID tests. And I would love to hear your experience as what that looks like, and if this is something that we are looking to have in the future to continue to have protocol in. What do you think could be something beneficial for players and for staff and for programs?
Yeah. You know, first off, I got very lucky. The MIAA, the conference I'm in Division II, was one of the first to hold a basketball game. They did a phenomenal job this year. One of the premier conferences, not only in Division II, but I think across the country. We had very few cancellations, very smooth process. There were not a lot of questions. We basically put together this handbook or manual, if you will, and it was foolproof essentially, and getting things done. And we were very lucky to be able to play essentially a game. But I think when we were coming back from the pandemic, it was so much more than basketball. And that's what I kept telling my kids is it's what this world needs right now. Like a glimpse of hope, a glimpse of some normalcy, a glimpse of just anything that we can give people, because at the end of the day, sports is entertainment. Entertainment makes the world go round. It has so many different emotions tied into it. And to be able to have those emotions in a program and in a family like setting, that's what we had been missing as a society because of isolation. So I thought that was it was an amazing experience. Now for me as a coach, I really had to tailor my style. I'm very much so hard-nosed, disciplined, no nonsense, really kind of push you to your breaking point, and then I get more out of you. And this year I felt like I went in thinking, I know I struggled in the pandemic, and I'm older, and you know, these kids are younger and they had a lot more taken away, especially these freshmen, you know, they graduated in a pandemic, like prom gone, graduation gone. And so I walked into it with the understanding of having a little bit more grace and compassion, and not being so overly eager or aggressive, really just loving them and letting them embrace this process, because we knew walking into it, like you would be on the bus and 3 hours away from tip off and the game gets canceled. And you have to be able to adapt and grow. And so there was a lot of instances where, you know, like we would go to one game and you warm up on the same side of the bench, and you know, your bench is on the baseline, and then the next time your bench is on the sideline and you're warming up opposite, and you know, whatever it may be. And so I think, you know, having the ability to adjust and see the bigger picture, and it's not just one game, it's not just, you know, one thing. It's the overall arcing of what we were trying to accomplish, and really just prove to ourselves, like, hey, we can feel some sort of normalcy again, and to have that, to, you know, be able to have that family atmosphere. So, you know, I'm very proud of not only my players, but just players across the country, because it was not easy. Not only, you know, from a mental standpoint, because most of these kids had never been isolated like that before. And then you take them out of that environment. Well, now their physical's downhill, because again, you were isolated and there was only so much physical you could do in that environment. And so there's a lot of injuries, and there was a lot of mental lapses, because, I sprained my ankle and I've never sprained my ankle before. And that takes a toll on you. And so I think as a whole, just what these youngsters have done, and it's funny, I say youngsters, we were just that not too long ago, but yeah, I want to say I'm still a youngster, but I'm not. But they really were resilient. And I think that was the first time in a long time I've thought that this specific generation really showed how resilient they were.
Lance with 1, okay, jump shot number 2, 3 to 3, okay, good.
in their approach, because without them, I mean, they easily all could have walked in an office, or my office specifically, and been like, hey, we don't want to play this year. There's too much uncertainty. There's too much up and down. And they had every right to do that. And I think a lot of them stuck with it, knowing that there was a bigger purpose, and really, for most of them, they didn't even know they were going to get an extra year until we had started the season. So, they were awesome. I think the youth is the future, and I'm actually feeling, rather confident about it, the way they're able to, unite, and especially with male and females right now, and say, hey, this isn't okay, or hey, we need to do better. The NBA and the WNBA, whatever it is, like they've done a great job of saying, hey, as an overall society, we're just not okay with this. And I've been rather proud of my athletes and their actions this year. So
absolutely. And why wouldn't you be, right? I mean, you've created this culture, it sounds like, where there is that freedom of speech, and you're inviting of that, and willing to listen. So I just love you. And I have to say, I am so extremely proud of you and everything that you do, everything that you have accomplished, through the ups and the downs. It is an honor to know you and to watch you from afar, and to be one of your biggest cheerleaders from here in Central Texas.
Man, you always were, and usually you were the one on the court more than I was, but somehow I got lucky into having a friend like you that just always cheered me on. So I don't know if you remember, but that picture of me running and jumping on you, and we're just jumping up and down in the middle of Assembly Hall. I can't even tell you what game we had just won. I think it was a WNIT game, but like that, I think that just says a lot about you, and it says a lot about the culture we had, and the relationships we had there. And I'm just so happy that for the most part, most of us are still rather close, and because that's what matters. Relationships stand the test of time,
right? And
that's what matters.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, once once we have a bigger clear of this pandemic, just know that my ass will be in one of those seats.
Come on with it. I got a 3-bedroom house. Come on.
I gotta buy my gear. I gotta wear I gotta put on my blue and just represent, because these athletes deserve, they work their asses off, so they deserve all of it. and more, right?
Absolutely.